People are already here joining us. It's so much fun to see everybody coming on live right on time. It increases the pressure on us. AIM will be joining us in about 10 minutes. But I'm delighted to be back with the Sunday Club. And of course, Suhel Seth, regular Sunday clubber. Ratan Sharda ji, also somewhat regular Sunday clubber, has his own YouTube channel now, which has a lot of interesting content. So do check that out as well. And let's just dive right into our Sunday Club discussions for the day. Suhail needs to leave about 10 minutes early today, so I'm not going to do my opening monologue and dive right in. So let's start with the possible cabinet expansion. It's all the buzz in New Delhi at the present time, in Lutyens' Delhi, so to speak. Everybody's talking about it. Journalists are, of course, speculating. There are a lot of never the bride, always the bridesmaid kind of candidates in the wings who are waiting for their chance for no longer Lal Batti Gadi, but the suitable bells and whistles that come with a ministerial portfolio. So just as both of you are close observers, tell me, Sohail, let's start with you. Who do you think is going to make it? First of all, we don't know if there's going to be a cabinet expansion. Even that is speculation. But if there is a cabinet expansion, who do you think is going to make it this time?
One thing you have to admire about Narendra Modi and his government is there are no leaks like they used to happen in the Congress. There is no party chatter ki bhai ye aayega, wo aayega. So anyone who tells you, oh, I have inside information, they are lying. What I think the Prime Minister has done successfully in the last 7 years is he has told people that the government will be run like a government. It won't be run like a party in Lutyens' Delhi. Having said that, we can only give you an intellectual argument as to how the cabinet should be formed. So give me a lot of time today, not a lot, but substantive time. What are the weaknesses of the present government? Always look at the weaknesses because the Prime Minister has already done a report card evaluation of his Council of Ministers. The weak links in this government are the following. Number one, healthcare. I have no comments of a personal nature against any minister. So let me park that as a pointer. Healthcare has been a weakness of this government, and not of this government, of any government across the world. Number two, communication has been a huge weak link of this government. For instance, when I look back in preparation for this evening Sunday Club, Advaita, the Modi government has done a lot of good and a lot of things that will last forever in India. We may mock them, we may make fun of them. The problem is it's very Shakespearean. The good often is buried and the evil lives long after. So what we are seeing is some stupid, inane comments related to religion or food or culture or what to wear are getting currency. For instance, this war on Twitter or war with Twitter, blah, blah, blah. But the government's good work has not been communicated in an effective manner. Number two, the work that has even happened in the healthcare domain, sadly, after the second wave, that has also not been communicated. Please understand, India from 1947 paid little heed to two very critical elements of any society, education and healthcare. Today, we are addressing those with furious rapidity, which is a good sign. So the third weakness to my mind is on policy formation and policy adherence. I said that on your program last week. Look at what is happening with e-commerce platforms who are defying every Indian law and nothing is being done about them. In fact, Gurudas Mahapatra ji, who died yesterday or day before, the secretary of in the Commerce Ministry, even had a press note ready to basically whip these e-commerce platforms into shape. I'm not worried about an Amazon or a Flipkart, but the damage that they have done to the local Kirana system in our country is unbelievable and unrepairable if immediate action is not taken. So there are also a lot of ministers holding dual charge. For instance, railways and commerce are very heavy ministries. Piyush is holding charge of that. Urban development, civil aviation with Hardeep. where do I, as a human being, as a citizen of India, and a very proud citizen at that, see my government making amends? Let me also park for all the rumors and all the swirling that has happened around her. Nirmala Sitharaman has actually done a fabulous job of steering the finance ministry with what we call in Hindi dhairya. There has been a certain amount of stability, a certain amount of, and she's a listening finance minister. She listens to people. So I wouldn't obviously want to change that. In the last 1 year, several people from the Congress have moved to the BJP. Several people from other parties have also moved. So let's take a laundry list. Jyotiraditya Scindia delivered Madhya Pradesh back to the BJP. I think he will be rewarded, as he should be. Right. He has performed admirably well whenever he's been a minister. I think Varun Gandhi has come of age where he could possibly be in the cabinet. Dinesh Trivedi, who has headed railways in a previous government, who then took that huge risk of both leaving the TMC and resigning from the Rajya Sabha. He needs to be rewarded, even though the results weren't up to the BJP's asking in Bengal. I also believe Baijant Panda, has done a fabulous job as a Prabhari, as a general secretary or as an observer for various regions, including Assam and other parts of the Northeast. He should find a role in the cabinet. So my belief, Advaita, is the following. Number one, the Prime Minister needs to shed some of the burden that lies on his shoulders. He needs people who are administratively adept, who are communication-wise savvy, and who will deliver what they are supposed to deliver. My last point is, you need ministers who've had experience of putting and keeping bureaucrats in shipshape. You cannot have a situation where the bureaucrat runs the ministry rather than the minister running the ministry. So these are some of my initial comments.
All right, thanks so much. I think you made some valuable points, identified some key people who are in the running. I think Jay Panda in particular is somebody who has been very consistent and has the sort of maturity as well as the wisdom to take on a responsibility like that. But I guess we'll just see. It all depends on the Prime Minister. Ratan Sharda ji, it's very different with the NDA, isn't it? And with Prime Minister Modi. Earlier on, we know these cabinet expansions and ministries were discussed on telephone calls between people who were not even vaguely connected to government. Very famously or infamously in the Radia case, what we overheard. With the NDA, however, especially with Prime Minister Modi, one cannot say for certain what is going to happen, whether there is even a cabinet expansion in the offing. We don't know that. And who will make it? That's even more of a long shot in terms of guessing.
First of all, I have said many times, it is not a good idea to outguess Mr. Modi. One should not even try. But point is that whether there is a reshuffle in the offing or not, it is required. Whether it is being planned or not, I do not know. It should be done because it seems to be run. The cabinet seems to be run by just a few handful of ministers who have done a fabulous job, but other ministries have become faceless. For example, rural development, one of the major planks of this particular government. What happened? Smart cities simply sunk because nobody understood the whole idea of what is smart city, including the ministers, bureaucrats, and the common people, the mango people. Secondly, in the 2014, Narendra Modi ji tried some good ideas of combining some ministries, changing some ministries, reducing the number of compartments in the ministry, connecting each other ministries. So we had a single road transport, water transport and all that. Again, that has been broken. And one good ministry that has been included is the water ministry, where they are trying to give water to each and every village. My problem is the education ministry, which is moving too slow for anybody's comfort. To say that, oh, NCERT books are still valid, but the man retired only in 2019. Why a particular man should retire 2019? Why he should not be retired? That is a question. Why he should be carrying on a ministry where the guy is not really doing what he's supposed to do? So education ministry, where there needs to be speed, NEP has come in. What is happening, we do not know. First NEP took 6 years to come in. It was revised twice over. Then there is no action visible on the ground. There are a lot of committees, a lot of actions happening. This notice stated, you don't need NEP to take care of the textbooks, which are horrendous in quality, in content, both. And the quality is horrible. Content is, of course, especially in history books, etc., or languages, is not even worth commenting about. Why it should take 6 years, I do not know. Culture ministry. You have very poorly maintained culture centers, very poorly maintained, hugely potential tourist centers. We may have created new tourist circuits, we may have created new lines, but we have not really maintained the cities there should be, or monuments that should be. Hampi still has more outsiders coming than our Indians going, because they don't know what is there. Or you talk of Ajanta Ellora, still we talk of Taj, but how many people of us who have visited Ajanta Ellora and got simply stuck and blown away by the beauty of Ajanta Ellora and the very technology used? So these issues needs to be addressed, because these are typically civilizational issues which are not been done. Coming to finance, my pet theory, that laws are too complex. Why laws are not being simplified, I have no clue. Why laws, when they are made, suddenly some babu creates some kind of, what do you call in bad Hindi, ungli karna. Whether it's budget from Arun Jaitley's time, somebody will put some kankar inside. When khana khate hai, kankar muh mein aata hai. So that small piece of stone is somewhere already there. Sometimes EPF, sometimes PPF, sometimes fixed deposit.
But in terms of changes, do you anticipate any changes? I mean, these are the issues that
definitely, if there is reshuffle, not changes. I want these to be consolidated again the way it was started in 2014, and new ministers inducted, and new ministers who will take their own decisions. I don't think that such a huge country, each and every file has to go to PM or to be vetted because the ministers may not be doing a good job. Then efficiency goes. How many ministers like Mr. Piyush Goyal or Nitin Gadkari actually push through the reforms, push through the work? How many ministers have guts to do that? Or how many ministers can do this? This push, like Mr. Modi, like Mr. Piyush Goyal or Nitin Gadkari, or even Smriti Irani, for whatever she does, she is a big pusher to get the things through. How many of our ministers are doing that? That is required. You cannot have an IBN ministry sitting over small issues, whether OTT platforms or whatever. They will bring one small law, then change another law. So he has, Suhel has given some names. I have no quarrel with the names. They are very good names. And not only administratively, politically also, you require to place these people out on wonderful work who have come to you a lot of trust and experience to put them in right place, to give the right direction to the government.
How much do you think UP elections that are upcoming will play into this cabinet expansion?
No. See, no minister, never any minister inducted at the time of elections has ever had a party, whether BJP, Congress. Give me one example. Sachin Pilot को लेइए आप राजस्थान जीत जाएंगे? नहीं जीतेंगे. आज ज्योतिरादित्य सिंधिया बीजेपी में आता है तो बीजेपी ज्योतिरादित्य सिंह प्लस अपने जोर से जीतेगी. आप अगर कल को किसी और को ले आते हैं बिहार में, it is wrong calculation. This typical journalistic view that you add one person from a particular ministry and you will get some huge votes. How can UP elections be change course by somebody coming to central ministry? Because UP elections will be judged by Yogi's performance. Whether there are one minister, two deputy ministers, whatever numbers, it will not change. Yogi will remain the face for good or the bad of BJP. So this talk of some minister joining something, if there was a big minister coming to UP, I could say, that might affect the election. Not the other way around. Not at all. These are small perks. These don't make difference to any voter. Understand that. आप हरियाणा में खट्टर जी को ले आइए सेंटर में, वहां किसी और को हुडा को बना दीजिए XYZ हुडा. It will not make any difference because party will be judged by the governance it has given. If you remember in your Uttarakhand, Himachal, every time there is a change in the face of the chief minister when there is fire under the gaddi. So somebody comes up, एक रावत जाते हैं, दूसरे रावत आते हैं, एक जाते हैं, खंडूरी आते हैं, but finally lose because those 2-3 precious years that was lost. People don't forget that Khanduri ji could change the fortune, but by whisker he lost the election, and finally it was Congress. So it has to be seen in the continuous way.
Different kettle of fish. I mean, there's so much internal strife in all the parties, and I don't know what not is going to go on there.
No, see, in large political competitive party, there will be competition. You cannot deny that. There will be people who want to get a better position, will jockey for the position. But I can say in BJP at its center, nobody has the guts to challenge Modi or Amit Shah to get a particular post or create a lobby. That will not work in case of Mr. Modi. Anybody doing self-promotion loses any chance of getting any ministry. I can assure you that. That is Congress. Not here. And they are not in self-destruct mode as yet, I would say. So UP, when before the storm could create any problem, they were able to calm the storms. So things will improve, but I don't think.
So I think what you've also done is answered some of that speculation about the kind of unsettled equations in UP when it comes to Yogi Adityanath. You've clearly said that Yogi Adityanath remains and will be the face for the 2022 UP Assembly elections.
The reason I said Advaita, in the last year, changing the face does not help. Whether 6 months, 10 months, it only destroys you further, it weakens you further.
But they've done that in Uttarakhand.
Defeat.
Yes. They've done that in Uttarakhand. They've changed the face in Uttarakhand. So it's not like they don't do it. They do.
UP is not Uttarakhand.
I understand that.
Too risky. And it's an admission of defeat. It's an admission of wrongdoing. Exactly. Why would you do it?
Okay, Abhijit, what about you? What are you hearing about this possible cabinet expansion, and who might get the metaphorical Lal Batti, since the actual Lal Batti Prime Minister Modi has thankfully removed?
First, I wanted to say sorry for coming late. Ram Ram Sa Khamma Gani Hukum. Look, for me, I've never been a fan of cabinet reshuffles. For one thing, what happens is, you require a level of expertise to build up, because even the executive oversight requires expertise. And when you do cabinet reshuffles, unfortunately, what you end up doing is you play directly into the hands of the bureaucrats more often than not. Number one. Number two, what happens here is, I don't think a reshuffle will matter, because like Suhel said before and Ratanji said before, the problem here is that everything is being micromanaged out of the PMO. Now, unless you give your ministers agency and allow them to do their own thing, things aren't going to happen. All right. And the problem here is then the failure cycle becomes much more acute, because everything then has to go up, up, up. The minister keeps getting ignored. And internal politics becomes much greater. I think there are lots of management lessons with micromanagement that you can learn. It increases internal stress within organizations, internal infighting and things like that. So I've never been a big fan of them. That said, in this particular case, it's entirely irrelevant who's new and who's not, because anyway, all the orders are going to come from the PMO. So, you could have, I don't know, Karachi wali government big gayi hai, Dadi becoming a minister, or you could have, I don't know, Rajnikant becoming a minister. It really won't change anything.
Advaita, what Abhijit has said is very important. And this needs some discussion. The Prime Minister, ever since his Gujarat days, has trusted the bureaucrat more than he has trusted his ministers. The reasons could be many. One is that the bureaucrats are often a stumbling block, and he wants to remove that stumbling block. Number two is he genuinely believes they are more efficient, more academic, and brighter than his ministers. But in a democracy, and especially in a political system of democracy such as we have, when you undermine the minister, you make the bureaucrat seem invincible. And therefore, the bureaucrat has you by what, and is therefore unwilling to go that extra mile. Please remember, a politician is accountable every 5 years. A bureaucrat is not. He's not accountable. I mean, I saw with a great deal of shame tweets from a former finance secretary where he said 30 lakh people will lose their jobs in the software business, when the total employment in all the software companies is not 30 lakhs. Now, this is a former bureaucrat. Then you had another situation of a former bureaucrat who, by the way, I know, who came asking me at that point in time to help him out. Kaise strategize kare, I'm doing so well. Why should I lose my job? Blah, blah, blah. That person has been attacking the Prime Minister and attacking the BJP every day.
Because he's not accommodated. That's the
Bureaucrats beyond a point किसी के नहीं होते. The politician is still subservient to the ideology of the party and subservient, hopefully, to the people who have elected him. There is accountability. I think the Prime Minister has some excellent people in the PMO. P.K. Mishra, the Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister, is outstanding. Outstanding, low-key, does his job, gets the job done. His own person, Sanjay Bhausar, outstanding.
very efficient memo also.
Correct. So these are people he's comfortable with and they're efficient. And please understand, to blame Narendra Modi for relying on bureaucrats is equally stupid. We have to go into history. Jawaharlal Nehru relied more on M.O. Mathai than he relied on anyone else. Indira Gandhi relied more on Haksar than she relied on anyone else. Rajiv Gandhi relied more on Gopi Arora than anyone else. So people should understand the historical perspective of the Prime Minister's office. Look at Vajpayee. Vajpayee relied on Brajesh Mishra more than he relied on anyone else. Brajesh was the alternate power center. I mean, Manmohan Singh was stuck because there was a guy called Pulak Chatterjee who was seconded to the PM's office by Sonia Gandhi. And he was a Sonia Gandhi acolyte. So, point I'm making, it's not unusual for politicians at the Prime Minister level to rely on a bureaucrat. But for it to happen large scale, it does two things, as Abhijit said. Number one, it undermines the ministerial will to work. I mean, why would I work for you if I know कि जो मैं तुमको कहूँगा, तुम as my bureaucrat will take it up to the PMO. Second is it undermines the political system that is prevalent in our democracy.
Advaita, I would just like, since there's a lot of wish list going on here, just discussing academically, we know we can't really influence nor can we judge who will be in the ministry. But to my mind, training of the personnel, that is training of the IAS officers, has to be revamped, and Modi ji has hinted many times. And possibly that needs a more firm minister who will be looking deeply on a visionary level to how to do it. Secondly, about law ministry and IT ministry, both are such big ministries. The kind of mess that is happening in the legal areas with judiciary, with the high courts and courts pending cases, it needs a full-fledged work. Similarly, IT, as you see, with so many issues like artificial intelligence and the way cyber wars are being fought and all that, it also needs, or even look at the big tech threats to Indian political system, they need to be dealt separately with two separate heads. Then MSME, the biggest employment creation, the biggest employment generation and biggest export earner, it is being just not tackled properly. It is being given a stepmotherly treatment for years together now. So do you expect them to give revenue, give employment, give export, but you will not do anything for them except, giving some small change to them in the terms of their revenue generation and what they get as help. So these are 2-3 areas apart from what I pointed out that need to be looked very seriously. And some ministries need to be brought together as Modi ji done in 2014.
Oh yeah,
I just want to make one point before Abhijit comes in. The Prime Minister within the bureaucracy introduced the lateral hiring concept. I think the cabinet should also look at lateral hiring. And I will give you 2 examples. Jaishankar, as a bureaucrat coming into the foreign ministry, the jury is out how he's performed. Blah, blah. Look at someone like Harish Salve, if he were to become the law minister.
Exactly.
See, the problem is Harish Salve brings gravitas, international reputation, and the ability to both argue and communicate. Why wouldn't you make Harish Salve the law minister? Today, you have Ravi Shankar Prasad who's handling dual charge, law and IT. And when he's handling both, where there are blatant and flagrant violations in the IT Act, the law cycle can't do diddly jack. So I'm saying even go out, Saeed Akbaruddin. So there are very bright people. Devi Shetty as health minister. I mean, that's whacked out thinking. But I know that the Prime Minister is also capable, hopefully, of out-of-the-box thinking. Jaishankar was not a party ideologue or a party member. If he could get into the cabinet, straight into external affairs, I don't see why people like Harish Salve for law, Devi Shetty for health, such people, or Saeed Akbaruddin, why they can't be drafted.
No, that's an interesting point, and that is some creative hiring if that does happen. We'll just have to wait and see.
But these governments also need to learn from the kind of hirings in state governments where 3 people appointed by the chief minister had to resign or had to refuse appointment because they came from a very strange background, which was totally antithetical to what BJP wants to do. And those who were openly opposing BJP policies, those came into the governments very close to chief ministers. So this kind of lack of attention to whom you are hiring is also one of the dangerous things that the BJP has to keep track of.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, you have to kind of, do your homework on those kind of hires. And that's a whole other conversation that I guess we can have at another point of time. Moving on to our next topic, this is something that I want to start with Abhijit on, and this is, of course, the ISIS widows. We certainly, have a situation on our hands. It's a situation which is not unusual to us. The United Kingdom also faced a similar predicament when one of their ISIS widows or ISIS brides, when they leave, and ISIS widows, when they lose their partners, husbands, whatever, end up in jail, or in the case of Shamima Begum, who was the UK's example of this. She was in Syria, went to Syria when she was a minor, so she wasn't even an adult. She went to Syria, of course, as the stories turn out, ended up widowed and with a child, and reapplied to the UK to come back in. The United Kingdom, of course, declined that request and essentially stripped her of her United Kingdom citizenship. Now in India, we're facing a similar predicament. There are some widows of ISIS fighters who left from Kerala, and since then have died in the fighting. They had their women or the wives surrendered to the Afghan authorities, are in jail presently. There are children involved. These women and their families in Kerala are now wanting them to return to India. There is, of course, furious debate over this. Most people are of the opinion that they should not be permitted to return to India. However, there are constitutional matters that need to be sorted before that decision can be made. And I just wanted to bring Abhijit in because he, of course, tracks terrorist activity and radicalization very carefully. And one has to ask whether the Indian government or India even has a de-radicalization system or policy wherein even if they were to return to India, would they go through that kind of de-radicalization? Would they go through the rule of law in India for what they've done? And of course, very quickly, Abhishek Manu Singhvi has said that they should come back, the senior Congress leader. He believes that they went there to fight, but ended up cleaning toilets and didn't really see any action, so can't really be considered dangerous to society, or I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially that's what he meant to say. So Abhijit, over to you.
Okay, so there's several issues out here that we need to unpack, right? First is the right of an Indian citizen. At what point do your rights as an Indian citizen get taken away or your citizenship get taken away? One is when you take the citizenship of another country, right? Other than that, there's no real provision to take away your citizenship. So what has happened here is these people, these women and their children effectively retain the right to be Indian citizens and the protection of the Indian consular arm in Afghanistan, number one. Number two, if you want to strip them of these rights, you will need certain legislation to be passed, which enables them of the stripping of citizenship for crimes and misdemeanors. That's a very sticky path to go down. However, point three, the crimes that have been committed in Afghanistan. All right. We don't claim extraterritoriality in Afghanistan, which is every Indian who commits a crime in Afghanistan doesn't get the right to come back to India and serve out their jail term and things like that. They have to be punished as per Afghan law, as the Afghans see fit. There is the question of the children. Yes, that is definitely something that has to be looked into. Depending on how old they are, they may not have been radicalized, and maybe they need to be given to the grandparents or something like that. But as for the women, if there has been a crime under Afghan law, and apparently there has, then they have to serve out their entire term in Afghanistan, not in India. Point number four, there has also been a crime in India for which they need to be tried again after their time in Afghan jail is up, once they come to India. Because remember, the crime there is one of supporting terrorism. The crime here is one of aiding and abetting a terror group, which is illegal. It precedes the fact they are being punished in Afghanistan for joining the Taliban. In India, they have to be punished for the fact that they left, they associated with Taliban prior to the joining, engaged in a criminal conspiracy, and then went to join that organization. So there are two levels of crimes out here. There is a second crime that has happened in India that also needs to be punished. So there is a secondary punishment that awaits them in India specifically, right? Fifth, what do we do with de-radicalization programs? Well, de-radicalization programs in India are a joke. Okay, we don't get into social studies generally in India is extremely weak. On one hand, there's a complete monopoly of the left on social studies. The second issue is that even the left in India are third-rate left. Have you ever seen a foreign communist party put up the image of Harkishan Singh Surjit or Sitaram Yechuri or Prakash Karat? They don't even know who these jokers are. But our people will put up images of even tiny little semicolons and apostrophes in the Pacific Ocean if they have a communist leader. There will be one Che Guevara, one Fidel Castro, one Salvador Allende.
In Kerala, Kim Jong-un.
Kim Jong-un. When I was in North Korea at the Juche Monument, there are very few token plaques from visiting delegations from other parts of the world. 60 to 70% of the plaques out there are from delegations coming from India. Amusingly enough. Only Indians are stupid enough to believe in Juche philosophy and go there as, student groups or tour groups. They call study circles, apparently. They go there.
I think it's embarrassing. I'm so embarrassed.
It is. Now, the thing here is your de-radicalization programs are non-existent. They're a joke. You basically put them in jail, you throw money at them, and you say, beta, come smile for the camera, bache, and things like that. And then you pretend that they're a very goody-goody two-shoes kind of thing. Sometimes it works because they're genuinely goody-goody two-shoes that have gone down nasty paths. Like I've had friends now who used to be stone pelters, and the only reason they'd come out to stone pelt was because they had they would be given opium and things like that. So it was a question of breaking their opium addiction, and then they came out of stone pelting. But here's the thing, that has to do with opium addiction. Do you have an actual de-radicalization program? No. Even today, what is happening is, you saw what happened with those girls that created a dance video outside the Dargah in Kashmir. You allow these fatwas, you allow these clowns to go around giving fatwas left, right, and center. Yaar, koi state ki koi qadar karta hai ya nahi?
Yeah.
Everybody can just usurp the law, go around giving fatwa here, fatwa there, kill this fellow, kill that fellow, and the state does nothing. You don't even arrest the people going around giving these fatwas. Far from it, ministers then flock to their stage at any political event and go doing Bollywood thumkas and jhumkas with them on the stage. Is this a republic or a bloody joke? So there is no de-radicalization here. In fact, all government policy, including and especially of this government, because of its pusillanimity, actually helps these kind of radical elements become more and more and more virulent. They think it's fantastic for their elections. Unfortunately, what's good for the BJP electorally is not necessarily good for India. Right. So in the case of these Afghan widows, there is a fine line to be tread. But if you follow the strict rule of the law and see, the fact that they had only toilets to clean out there is entirely irrelevant. It's the intent that matters.
They went there. And how does it know that? That's the other thing. There is this sort of way of minimizing and justifying these kind of ills that the Congress, excels at, to make them seem like they are housekeeping staff for ISIS, as opposed to part of the terror network, is something classic Congress,
Exactly. There is no way to prove it, number one. And number two, it doesn't matter because it was the intent that mattered. They intended to go there to go bomb things. The fact that the only thing that they cleared was stink bombs in a public toilet is a completely different matter.
Advaita, I just want to jump in on this because, as you know, I have to leave early today. I have 4 things to say on this. Number one, don't call them ISIS widows or fighters. They are terrorists. As far as I'm concerned, they are in bed with a terrorist organization. When I last checked, Taliban was not the missionaries of charity. They're a terrorist organization, and they were part of a terrorist organization. Whether they were cleaning toilets or cleaning their heads is an entirely different matter. Number two, in our country, we have a whole army of human rights, so-called human rights activists who believe only terrorists have human rights, baki ke rights bhaan mein jaye. These jokers will also jump in to the fray. Number three, as Abhijit rightly said, we have a weak state in taking action, because then the whole world will be up in arms. First will be the hypocrites from America who will say, oh, you must take them back, blah, blah. What did the UK do? I was in London at that time when this whole Shamim Begum thing happened. There was chaos. The Home Secretary was being pilloried every day. And I think it was this Muslim gentleman, Sajid, who was the Home Secretary. Every day he was being pilloried. You're on mute. But do you think they gave a damn? They didn't. Number four, we, as Abhijit said, do not have a de-radicalization process. How do we know that when they come back, they will again become recruiters? It's not कि उन्होंने कोई purification ceremony की है. ये भी नहीं कि उन्होंने आपको कहा कि भाई हम सत्य वचन से कहते हैं हम अब एकदम शरीफ बन जाएंगे. जब आप देश छोड़ के गए, आपको पता था आप कहां जा रहे हो, क्यों जा रहे हो और क्या करने जा रहे हो. बिल्कुल. Those things don't change. I do not want my country, men, women, and children to feel unsafe because some terrorists have found their way back using either the constitution or the judiciary or the weakness of the state or the high decibel pitch of so-called human rights activists. Let them be in Afghanistan. They can always graduate from cleaning toilets to doing whatever the hell they want. We don't want them here. As simple. They didn't take our permission when they left. Why should they seek state, consent when they come back?
Mm-hmm. And it's tragic because there are children with them. I don't know if there is some way that children shouldn't have to grow up around that or in these jails.
My only worry is about the children.
Yes.
So I don't know what the rules are constitutionally, legally, if we can get the children. But these things are,
mother and child.
Illegal. Yeah. Then the separating the mother from the child. See, my view is don't make this into a gender issue and don't make this into a fighter issue. They weren't fighting for a cause. Gender in any crime is irrelevant. The fact is they went there of their own violation. They knew they were going to Afghanistan. They weren't going on a holiday to Malta or to the Maldives. So, that's how it is.
Yeah. Ratan Sharda ji, what do you think is the sensible way forward?
If I'm not wrong, UK has been carrying on this de-radicalization program in UK for nearly 2 decades, if I'm not wrong. Through schools, through madrasas, and various efforts where they're trying to push Sharia into the public policy in UK. Nothing has changed. Last 20 years, radicalization has only grown. The highly aggressive Islam, the way they are doing it on the streets of UK is there for everybody to see. Pushing their agenda is for everybody to see. So de-radicalization just doesn't work till you are objectively checking the main source of the radicalization. I have not seen any left, any so-called progressive to comment on the book which has spawned all these ideas. And the modern Muslims quote the same book. The extremists quote the same book. Only 1 or 2 scholars in India know very clearly say what is contextual, what is not contextual, but nobody has challenged them. So unless you challenge the very basis of radicalization, how can you de-radicalize? Because if you shy away from the problem, you cannot solve the problem. That is point 1. Point 2, when these people went out of their choice, they said, "Jo karwaoge, karenge, what I want us to do, we will do." Very simple.
Knows the time exactly.
So this particular issue of their coming back, let them face the law and let them face all the clauses of the law and let them finish their punishment and let them go on in the world and then keep a track. See, keeping a track even a highly conscious US state kept a tab on terrorists. What happened? Because the information was never disseminated properly. So 9/11 happened and still there are problems there. So you have to be much more objective, much more clear about what is happening. So unless you are able to look at the source and tell these people clearly, this is what is wrong and this is what cannot be done. If we cannot punish people who say so many lakh of rupees for head of XYZ person, sar dhar se juda, and all those issues for somebody speaking on something, and you don't take any action which is against the law, which clearly say that for us Sharia is superior, then you cannot really do much about it. When they know that we can push through because there are secular politicians, so-called progressive left, who are tied up now with this extreme Islamists, you cannot solve the problem. So state has to show teeth.
Ratan Sharda
State has to show the teeth. Yeah.
No, this will become a Hindu-Muslim issue. There will be some people who will say you are targeting Muslims.
Okay, let me speak. Let me put something else. Nalini and the entire gang of LT people who killed Rajiv Gandhi, who is asking for their remission of balance sentence? Congress. Who else? The so-called supporters in Tamil. And who is wanting them to finish the punishment? BJP. So there is no Hindu-Muslim issue at all. But if somebody went with, when somebody went, see, Suhel ji, when somebody went with express idea to further the cause of Islam, then you have to accept it. You cannot say, no, ये तो हुआ ही नहीं था. Communal है तो है, boss. I mean, terror का अगर source उनको पता है वो क्या करने जा रहे हैं, ISI में भजन करने तो नहीं जा रहे थे, सीरिया में भजन करने तो नहीं जा रहे थे, now वहां पर स्कूल खोलने जा रहे थे. So to say ये communal है, अगर वो communal mind से गए या communal mind वो केवल इस्लाम के नाम से गए, आप पूछ लीजिए उनको, they will clearly say we went for Islam. So what is wrong in me stating that? Unless we are able to state this, there is a problem.
My point is to target Modi or the BJP. They will say, if they want to, they will say, oh, you are targeting these women because they are Muslim.
That's what they did in Syria also. No.
My point is, in this country, first though, everyone has made a mistake. Islamic terror, Hindu terror. Terror has only one religion. It's called terrorism. You see, my point is that you will have the so-called secularists, so-called this, so-called that, who will say, oh, dekha, ye fir targeting of Muslims. So you have to just follow, as Abhijit rightly said, the law, and then take a very cruel, hard, cold call as to what you will do with them. My heart only goes out to the children who have no role except having sadly been born to these people. So we have to find a solution. But again, that is for, experts and, NGOs and their ilk to look at. On that note, मैं आपसे क्षमा मांगूंगा.
Thank you.
Jai Hind, Jai Bharat, Jai Ho, and stay safe.
We also meet on Saturdays for the Hindi show.
Zarur.
I know you'll be joining us for that next week. And
आपकी आज्ञा सर आंखों पर.
Have a great week and see you on Saturday, Suhel.
And to all the people on the live chat, Jai Hind, सुखी रहिए और सुरक्षित रहिए. जान है, जहान है. Jai Hind.
And I just wanted to raise an issue, Advaita. Have you seen this?
No, we can't.
This is the Popular Front of India.
Yes.
This is the Popular Front of India, Karnataka. They have been given a blue tick by Twitter as of today.
Oh,
this is the same group that plotted to kill Tejasvi Surya, who's the head of the youth BJP. And they have been given a blue tick by Twitter. और हमारे मंत्री बैठ के क्या कर रहे हैं? चूड़ियां पहन रहे हैं. इन हाथों में लाल लाल चूड़ियां हैं, जरा ठहरो सजन मजबूरियां हैं, मिलन होगा कभी एक रात की दूरियां हैं. Then do dance, yeah. Why are you running a government?
पर मजबूरियां क्या है?
They have tried to kill the leader of the youth BJP. What a joke!
There were many cases. They have got many cases.
I am very familiar with them. So, Ratan Sharda ji, मजबूरियां क्या है सरकार की कि they are unable to act. They are still writing.
Yeah, very sure they will send some protest letter to Twitter tomorrow. Today is a holiday, so maybe by Monday. But the very fact that Twitter keeps on showing middle finger to government of India and people of India is something that should tell us that you need to be more firm and not keep on sending letters. I've said earlier also that law ministers should stop coming on TVs and press conferences just to justify action on on some delinquents like Twitter. It is not a bureaucrat to take on the action. He has said what he has to say. Action should follow. Why he should keep on justifying? We know what it is. You will be projected anyway.
And why are they on
as
the
a
back
killer of
foot?
democracy. They have to follow the law of the land. They go to parliament committee and they say that we follow our own laws. So now it's a supranational, nation called Twitter, Twitterland, where they will follow all over the world what they want to do. So there is domination of big tech, which I've been talking for a long time. And this is where government has to prick its ears, understand there is something fundamentally been done for IT. That is the reason I said you need full-time IT minister who will take care of all the laws, take care of technology, and see to it that new technologies are developed within India, right from operating systems to Play Stores to everything. So people have a choice, people know what to do. We say that we will have something out of the Play Store. You cannot have anything out of the store. I told you yesterday, tomorrow YouTube goes well and they, Advaita is doing too much of, nationalist stuff or, speaking too much about, about the so-called seculars. Iska YouTube se nikal do. Kar lo jo karna hai. You can't do a thing. That is the point. You are also Trump for them. So Trump was Trump. Anybody supporting was Trump. This cancel culture has to be responded to in a way that they understand the language. If they can pay penalty in European Union, if they can be subdued by Russia, if they can be, Google can be pulled up in China and they go crawling and work for them with money, and Twitter goes on crawling and punishing us for speaking ill of China, but there they have no entry. So unless that kind of firm, there is no need to ban. The government just to say these are all of the land. Dhanda karna hai to karo, please, otherwise go out somewhere where you find your dhanda. It will cure. The day Twitter was handed over the letter, their stock price crashed 25%.
I know.
So they understand commerce.
No, there
right
was
from
this,
the day of imperials, they understand only commerce.
I think Abhijit, you posted this, right? That was it you that there was no sexual harassment committee as per the law of the land, which is required in all organizations. Twitter didn't have one.
They claim there is no office here. They claim that they have nobody here in
but India. For a progressive organization, I'm quite surprised that they would not have a sexual harassment.
I'm sure they would. I think that was in regards to the Supreme Court. They don't have a sexual harassment committee.
Okay, it wasn't Twitter then?
No.
Okay.
The Supreme Court doesn't have a sexual harassment committee. So much for the law.
Okay, so it was on Twitter. Okay, right. Okay, that's what. So my bad. It was the Supreme Court that the tweet was about, which I noticed.
Well, if a court says that behavior of the girl who was allegedly molested by a great editor, she behaved in a way that did not show that she had suffered molestation, then what do you say of the thinking of the judiciary, whoever gave this particular comment? That is, I think, a comment which needs to be looked into as a very serious, I can't say mental issue, but something very serious, the way we think about women. Yeah. And we are a progressive country. We are supposed to have a very progressive judiciary, which keeps on, showing the green flag to all the progressive measures. But for a judge to use this as a factor for releasing that great editor is a very huge embarrassment, if not shame.
And this is the challenge with rape conviction rates also, because yes. It's very hard to get a conviction on a rape case. And,
see, Advaita, whenever I talk about the harsh laws, I have been saying harsh laws don't give a result. You need strict, adherence to the law by a law of enforcing agencies like the police and all that, who will take the cases. If they don't take the cases, they should be punished. They should be penalized. The day it happens, everything will fall into place. Look at Bengal now. The ladies who wanted to file FIR for just rape, they were not allowed to be medically tested, delayed, no FIR filed. And this happens everywhere. I am not saying Bengal. I gave an example because I remembered off the top of the head. Everywhere it happens. So unless law enforcement is done, you can bring n number of strong laws. It will not change anything.
Bengal is an important topic because the Supreme Court's observations this week have really been bone-chilling, when the details of the cases emerged that women who have suffered have put forth, Abhijit. And yet at the same time, you see a section of the media, of course, the one that thinks of itself as, rights champions, completely ignore it and really aid and celebrate, TMC MPs who mock the suffering of people in their own state because
mind you, one of the TMC MPs mocking these victims is considered the forerunner or the front runner of feminism in this country.
It's shocking.
Okay. Celebrated for feminism in this country, belonging to a rapist regime. Okay. Minimizing their suffering, pretending it doesn't happen, claiming that it is infighting, and all kinds of nonsense. And mind you, these are the same people that will be platformed and celebrated by places like NDTV and Co.
No, on cover of magazine.
And Washington Post and New York Times and God knows what else.
Yeah, and I mean,
and of course, the woman doesn't have any brains to write anything new. So the same article she published in one newspaper 1 month back, she's published in another newspaper. After that, exact verbatim, word for word. ठीक है ना? I know how to defeat. Yeah, because you know she's Mamata Banerjee actually. ठीक है? Number one. Number two. Let's look at the Supreme Court itself. Why is the Supreme Court not taking suo motu cognizance of this? Why are we allowing the Supreme Court to go scot-free? For their friends and this and that, they will have a midnight session at a judge's house.
Yeah.
But apparently people getting raped and killed in Bengal, some of it recorded on video, mind you, is not important for them. Like the guy whose dog was tortured and then he was tortured and killed and then he was tortured and killed. All recorded on video, incidentally. Then the judge says she doesn't want to hear the case. No explanation given. I don't want to hear the case, bus.
Yeah.
Mind you, there is a fellow who jumped from that party to the BJP, who was given Z category security. When he goes back, he writes to the goes back to the TMC. He writes to the government saying, "I don't need security anymore."
What does that mean exactly? What does that mean?
What does that mean?
That when you're in the BJP, you are at risk of your life.
And mind you, this is the same Washington Post and New York Times screaming, "Oh, fascism here, fascism there." What does it tell you about the editorial boards of these newspapers? You know, there was a very, I forget who the American commentator was. One second, there was a very, very perspicacious American commentator, I think, I forget his name now, who said, the American press is a kept press, far dirtier than any mistress who's ever been kept. And he wasn't wrong.
That's a bit of a misogynistic analogy, but one can see the point on that. But I think they've also given up the pretense of any kind of balance. This has been extremely revealing. It's so blatant, it's so over the top, and they don't even pretend to be unbiased anymore. They take positions and they put forth those positions unapologetically. And
have you noticed the funniest thing in all of this? They actually don't. They actually claim they are balanced, but even their so-called right-wing commentators are actually far left. For them, right-wing is for them, left-wing is Mao Zedong, and right-wing is Che Guevara in that spectrum of things.
Right. And I think this, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think this has a lot to do with the monetary challenges that the press and publications are facing the world over. I think as everything, one should follow the money trail, and that will reveal certain answers, because the shift towards this biased position is definitely very, very suspicious, coming at a time that the print industry
Advaita, it is very well documented that China has spent billions of dollars to capture the American media and the world media. So there is no secret there from where the money flows. Earlier it was, petrodollars. Now it's communist dollars.
Yeah.
See, the very easy things that you can do, Advaita, the very easy things that you can do. For example, you just say that the government of India will not engage with anybody working at or with the Washington Post, New York Times, and things like that. You can't give government contracts. If you advertise in those papers, you can't get government contracts. You can't even get government appointments. It's that simple.
They don't do that though.
Tell me, why is it that the moment the Congress comes to power within the first day, they get rid of every committee or appointee that the BJP has posted? But when the BJP comes to power, they don't even know who the appointees are. Do you know there's an appointee at some UP university at the moment who's a rabid leftist and has been appointed by this government?
No, I have no idea.
This is what they do.
Hmm.
So they are clueless about these things. It is driven by inferiority complex. Okay, no matter how many elections they win, the election that they want to win is in the hearts and mind of Arundhati Roy.
I'll just add a small bit of my personal experience. A good friend of mine spent 3 years convincing the Maharashtra Education and Minorities Minister, a very staunch BJP person with a history of being full-timer, etc., to have a Punjabi academy so that Sikhs and Hindus could actually nurture Punjabi language in Maharashtra. It took him 3 years to get the committee made. It took him 6 months to have the meeting with the minister. And when this particular academy came into existence, then another 6 months to say what to do now, space constraint and all that. So minister said, don't worry, when we come back to power, we are creating a new building for minorities in which you will get a floor and all that wonderful words. Final election happened for reasons we know. BJP was kept out of power. And within a week, I tell you, this committee, we had done a lot of work without any government help, without any government support, because we knew the academy is already in. So we'll keep working because, Sikhs are very big-hearted. Sir, Aja ji Khalsa College program karte hain ji and all that. And within a week, the committee was dissolved without any rhyme and reason. I was sent a letter, tumhara I card wapis kar and all that, typical letter. And after the committee has not been formed. So what is not required is first finished, whether it hurts the society, whether it hurts a good cause. It was not a political, meet at all. It was not a political office at all. We were doing selflessly because till the government could give us anything, we were spending out of pocket. But this was dissolved by this particular Mahavikas Agadi within a week, and no new body as far as has been formed. So that is the clarity. What Abhijit talked about. This is the clarity. What they want to do.
That happened
while our government
also,
keeps
right?
Until the
that happened in MP
over.
also.
So
MP
NCRT
also
person who created all the havoc was allowed to continue 2019. So when he was caught with pants down, they said that 2019 retired. What's the use of talking now? So why was that till 2019? So this intelligence to understand who are your friends and foes and who can do a good work for you, who can actually frustrate your work is very clear.
Why do you think it's not done?
Well, I have no answer apart from saying that once you feel you have to have to look like a good boy. I can't say anything more. That bureaucrat must complete their terms and committees must keep their terms and all that stuff, whatever it is. But if it hurts the overall, narrative of the government, overall narrative push of the government on which it won the elections. I am not saying something which is not there. On the very cause that you say what you are, and then you allow such people to frustrate your efforts, it shows either lack of application or it shows trying to be good boys to everybody and showing how objective and how impartial you are. But point is that whether you're impartial, whether you're good boys or not, you will be whiplashed because they know who you are. They understand you better than you understand as probably. Once they know they are not with you, they are against your typical left attitude. That if you are not with us, you are against us, you must be punished, pushed, sent out of power, and your efforts to reform whatever bad has happened in the country must be frustrated. So each and every bill must be badged up. Each and every law must be badged up. Not a single point should be given to any government which is not as per their choice, which they decide in their own committee rooms, not in the voting, democratic way of voting. They will frustrate every effort to reform the society and governance.
This happened in Madhya Pradesh, I recall, when as soon as Kamal Nath took charge, that Makhanlal Chaturvedi University, they sacked everybody who had any association, close or distant, with the BJP.
Not only that, they had sent out notices to hundreds of professors and teachers.
Right.
As far as I know.
Ratan Sharda ji, let me finish. They got a whole set of new people on as lecturers, like, journalists from The Wire and all these other publications that favor them. And yeah, they did it very openly. And of course, they're well within their rights to do it. But what is also clear is that the BJP is not able to, repeat that. And in a sense, that's good as well. I think bureaucrats should finish their terms, and there should be that level of professionalism when it comes to these things. Unfortunately, there's too much.
Advaita, are they straightened up? I know film festival committees where these people still got nominated despite their very clear agenda, very clear thought process for at least 2 to 3 years that I know. I know many inside stories because many people wanted me to be part of all this. I said I refused to do that. But I know those stories, how despite all this, finally the committee had the bureaucrats pushing in the people who are ruling the rules for many years. And you as film personality also know those people.
No, actually, I'm not involved in anything. So that's I wasn't involved when there was a.
I mean, as a film people, not as a government person.
I'm not involved now that there is a BJP government. So
no, I'm talking of you as a film person, not as a government person.
No, yeah. I mean, as a film person, I mean, I kind of don't know too much of what's going on. I mean, it's a job and I do my job, but yeah, I'm not part of any committee or anything. So I can't really comment on the Congress or the BJP time. But what is clear is that, yes, certainly there are issues with this. It keeps getting highlighted, and I see that the other side does not waste any time. And the other side is also better at nurturing an ecosystem for whatever it's worth, which the BJP is absolutely unable to do beyond a certain level. So that's of course another issue, but for another day. But I want to thank you all for coming today again for the Sunday Club. We of course discussed a lot of things that we wanted to discuss. We got a little serious today, except for Abhijit's little respite in the middle. So I want to thank you for that. And yeah, we should come back on Saturday when we're going to be talking about Khabron Se Paar, which is our Hindi program. For those of you watching, please do come on there. There is an LLB student who has joined us and sent a message looking for an internship with a lawyer. So I'd be happy to help you. So please go ahead and email me. I'll just give you the official email address. The official email address is, just one moment. It's advaitaoffice@gmail, or you can email me at office@advaitakala.in. I repeat, advaitaoffice@gmail or office@advaitakala.in. And this is from Deepak Manthia, and he is an LLB third-year student who wants to find an internship with a legal person. So Abhijit, Ratan Sharda ji, if you know of somebody as well who's looking for a legal intern, let's help the young man out.
I hope you don't encourage to, you'll end up as the employment exchange soon.
No, I always help people. If anybody is looking for a job, I will try and help them. And it's a tough market out there. There's one young man who has been talking to me from Solan in Shimla for the last 8 months and needs a job in software, in hardware actually. And
unfortunately,
trying and nothing is available. So, what do you do?
See, Advaita, unfortunately, I have been in this market for long to see people who are very earnest till they get the job. I hope the youth who are trying to contact you for internship, etc., they learn that life is tough. They have to work tough, work hard to reach somewhere. I was in software field till 2019 before I, came out. And we would have engineers struggling and working very hard to get a job very sincerely. The day they came in, 9 to 5 mentality kicked in. Earlier, before that, just 10 years before that, they would work their asses off for 12 hours, 18 hours to finish their job and prove their worth. And they did wonderful work. They learned everything, but that attitude has changed. That attitude of, getting a job and then looking at 9 to 5 job, etc., that is hurting their own career and also hurting the market itself. So I just gave an advice to the people who wish to, get into good places or use connections or use some references to get job. They will be right because situation is bad. At the same time, I exhort people, young people, to take life seriously. I used to tell my people, just work for 3 years hard enough, your career is made. After that, things will settle down. But to look at within 6 months to say, ye to mere bas ka nahi and all that, that is pretty bad.
Well, I mean, that can happen. It happened in our time also when people used to bail out on opportunities. But I think, I like to help people. I'm not the BJP. I'm joking.
No, I have also helped
No,
a
it's
lot.
true.
I'm just saying that at a professional level.
I do. I mean, if I do know a
I
bunch
was the
of
last
lawyers,
person to dismiss anybody. I'll tell you, as the last person to dismiss anybody, while the IT company used to take 6 months to throw a person, I would allow a person to learn, and if he's sincere, I would allow him to waste company's money and my efforts for even a year, unless to just prove because he was very sincere. But unfortunately, you could find out a person within 3 months how sincere or unsincere is. That is what I'm, just exhorting young people.
Everyone has taken a chance on us also at some point in our lives, and sometimes we've succeeded, and sometimes we've not succeeded. I know I've disappointed people I've worked with in the past, and that's just the way life is, And I commend the young man for reaching out on this public forum, and I'll be happy to help you. Please email me. I'll repeat my email: office@advaitakala.in. And there is one question for you, Abhijit. What to do if you want to study defense and international strategy and you're an engineer? This is from Kapil Gund.
So Kapil, if you're already an engineer, what I'd suggest you do is do a correspondence course or things like that. I'm sure you'll find, don't do it in India, please. Do it from abroad. There's several courses like that. You should be doing that. And once you've done it, then let's get in touch, because then we can kind of facilitate your movement over. Though, in engineering, there's lots of scope within engineering itself once you understand defense issues well.
Okay, lovely. I would think that, because some of the things that you talk about are so complex that I would think that you would need like that kind of an engineering background to understand these.
So, the funny thing is you don't actually need, the problem is defense is made unnecessarily complex. The main thing is you need to know people. It's talking to a lot of people and triangulating information. So, very frequently what happens is in India, you get one version from the Indian military, but then three people who hate each other and don't trust each other, the French, the Russians, and the Americans, agree on the exact opposite point of view. Then you clearly know who's bullshitting you and who's not.
That's true. That's true. But anyway, thank you so much. And we're going to be back next week. Everybody, thank you for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Do keep reaching out to us. We do read your comments. Cannot answer to all of them every day, every time. But certainly we do take in your feedback. As you can see, my lights are a lot better today. I have a mic. So, we're trying to get more professional. But I want to thank you again. And this is a difficult time for everyone in their lives. So if we can help in any way, I think I speak for Ratan Sharda ji, Suhel, Abhijit, me, that if we can help in some way, just reach out to us. But like as Ratan Sharda ji said, this is a time of fewer options. So please be very serious when you do reach out, and make sure that you're deserving of this opportunity, because there are a lot of people who don't even get this far. So do keep that in mind, and we're here to help, we're here to chat, and thank you everybody for watching, and have a great week, and stay safe.
Thank you.